Liu Cixin was born on June 23, 1963 in the coal mining city of Yanchuan, Shanxi, an industrial basin framed by dust-brown mountains and by the aftershocks of the Cultural Revolution. His parents, both trained engineers, survived successive political campaigns by relocating between mines and hydropower projects. Throughout Liu's childhood, the family's possessions fit into travel trunks that never quite emptied. He has recalled evenings when electricity was rationed and children read by the glow of coal gas lanterns while loudspeakers broadcast ideological slogans outside. Those twin impressions, darkness broken by sudden light, and technology deployed as an agent of destiny, seeded the sensibility that would later infuse his fiction. Awe at the power of science, flanked by suspicion that human societies are rarely prepared for the futures they summon. In 1981, Liu entered the North China University of Water Conservancy and Hydroelectric Power, a pragmatic choice encouraged by his father, who believed that large civil works would guarantee lifetime employment even in volatile times. The curriculum drilled fluid dynamics, concrete viscosity, and fatigue thresholds into students expected to build the next generation of Yangtze dams. Yet Liu spent much of his dormitory time reading contraband translations of Arthur C. Clarke and Strugatsky Brothers paperbacks smuggled in from Hong Kong kiosks, annotating the margins with Chinese equivalents for terms like event horizon and phase transition. Upon graduation, he accepted an assignment at the Niangziguan power plant in Qinshui Canyon, a remote installation where turbine rooms reverberated like Gothic cathedrals and where overnight shifts granted long stretches for thinking. On a factory typewriter, he began composing short stories that tested how cataclysms, nanotech plagues, solar flares, orphan black holes would bend the scaffolding of human institutions. His earliest published piece, Whale Song, appeared in 1999 in Science Fiction World, China's lone nationwide genre magazine. It won a Galaxy Award but hinted only faintly at the scale he would later command. More declarative was The Wandering Earth, serialized in 2000, which imagines the entire planet retrofitted with fusion engines to escape a swelling sun. A conceit so extravagant that many Chinese readers, accustomed to cyberpunk urbanism, called it cosmic fever. Liu insisted that it merely extrapolated Newtonian mechanics. Once political, will is assumed limitless. That tension between rigorous physics and implausible consensus remains a signature. He treats social cohesion as a variable no less mutable than temperature or pressure, asking what forms of governance might arise if survival problems attain astronomical proportions. Between 2006 and 2010, he unfolded his masterwork, The Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, better known by its first volume's title, The Three-Body Problem. The initial chapters embed the Cultural Revolution's terror inside a signal processing mystery, linking a persecuted astrophysicist's desperate transmission to a planetary system locked in chaotic tristellar orbits. Volume 2, The Dark Forest, introduces Liu's most discussed contribution to science fiction thought experiments, cosmic sociology. It posits that in an unregulated universe, every civilization is a potential predator, compelled to strike preemptively or remain silent, because no entity can divine another's long-term intentions under relativistic communication delays. The result is not a galactic federation, but a night forest where hunters fire at the glint of an eye. Volume 3, Death's End escalates that premise to dimension-folding weapons and vacuum decay, doomsdays, threading game theory, nuclear deterrence logic, and Chinese board game philosophy, Weiqi, not chess, into a 600 million year arc that ends with humanity sheltering inside an artificially compressed pocket universe. While the trilogy gathers reference points from Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama and Stapledon's Cosmogonies, its narrative voice is unmistakably post-Mao Chinese. Bureaucrats from the People's Liberation Army debate orbital strategy alongside UN envoys. Cultural Revolution flashbacks coexist with Wall Street algorithmic traders. Protagonists measure heroism less by individual transcendence than by willingness to subordinate private life to planetary calculus. That collectivist lens has sparked Western debate on whether Liu's futures betray authoritarian sympathies or merely dramatize realist geopolitics at interstellar scale. Liu himself, when pressed, calls politics a coordinate system that any serious science fiction author must specify before launching equations. The trilogy's translation by Ken Liu and Joel Martinson between 2014 and 2016 coincided with a global hunger for non-Anglophone speculative fiction and with China's own space program milestones: Lunar Rover U-2, Tiangong stations, Chang'e sample returns. In 2015, The Three-Body Problem won the Hugo Award for Best Novel, the first Asian work to do so, reconfiguring the genre's map overnight. Print runs exceeded 10 million across 25 languages. Hollywood optioned rights multiple times, and Netflix greenlit a series executive produced by the creators of Game of Thrones. For many Western readers, Liu became a one-man syllabus for Chinese techno-imagination. Though at home, he is part of a broader Kohuan renaissance that includes authors Hao Jingfang and Chun Xiufan, each influenced by his willingness to yoke Vernadskian biogeochemistry to Confucian cosmology. Liu's engineering background permeates his prose at the level of sentence rhythm. Explanatory clauses accumulate like nested dependency diagrams, and metaphors often derive from mechanical leverage or thermal stress. He distrusts metaphysical ornament, yet indulges metaphoric scope. His favorite trick is to juxtapose microscopic detail, a proton-sized AI called a Saphan, with sublime scale shifts in which entire solar systems are shredded by dimension-cutting droplets. Readers attuned to Anglo-American character-driven narrative sometimes complain that Liu's heroes are schematic, that emotion yields too quickly to briefing room exposition. But for Liu, the true protagonist is the problem itself, and emotional arcs reside in the collective psyche. The despair of physicists when the Saphan sabotages particle accelerators, the suicidal delirium of the Earth Trisolarist movement, the stubborn hope embodied by Luo Ji's dark forest deterrence. Controversy touched him in 2019 when comments surfaced in which he appeared to downplay reports of Uyghur detention camps, stating that national unity sometimes requires necessary measures. Western critics accused him of excusing repression. Liu replied that he writes fiction, not policy. The episode underscores the larger question of whether science fiction can, or should, function as political dissent inside an authoritarian context. Liu's work seldom portrays the Communist Party directly, yet assumes state agencies that coordinate megaprojects with disciplined alacrity. Some readers see soft propaganda in that assumption. Others view it as pragmatic extension of the engineering mindset. Large-scale solutions need centralized coordination, or they fail. Beyond the trilogy, he has produced novels like Ball Lightning, which refracts survivors' guilt through quantum weapon research, and Supernova Era, where a cosmic ray wipes out adults, forcing preteens to inherit a world they remodel first as playground, then as battlefield. Both novels dramatize what Liu calls the gravity of optimism, the idea that hope, to be credible, must weigh as much as catastrophe. His short stories, collected in The Wandering Earth and Hold Up the Sky, experiment with narrative modes from hard-boiled noir to fable, but all orbit the same silhouette. Humanity confronted by scales of space-time that dwarf moral intuition. Film and television adaptations multiply. Frank Guo's 2019 blockbuster of The Wandering Earth became China's first global sci-fi hit, grossing $700 million and prompting state media think pieces on sci-fi soft power. A sequel expanded Liu's cameo role as consultant, though he quipped that the science is 99% nonsense, but the spirit is correct. Video game studios license his IP for VR explorations of Saphan interiors. Board game designers craft asymmetric strategy sets where players enact dark forest diplomacy behind opaque screens. In lectures, Liu endorses such bricolage, asserting that science fiction must behave like software, forked, remixed, hacked, if it is to keep pace with accelerating reality. As quantum computing prototypes inch toward workable error correction and SpaceX starships rehearse orbital fuel transfers, Liu's macro-engineering schemes feel less fantastical and more like pre-deployment white papers. Chinese aerospace engineers cite the Wandering Earth when proposing solar sail tugboats for asteroid redirection. American SETI researchers debate dark forest hypotheses in peer-reviewed journals. Even global strategy think tanks now ask whether first contact scenarios justify preemptive confidentiality. In that sense, Liu has migrated from literary speculation to a ghostwriter of policy thought experiments. Yet he remains an amateur astronomer at heart, happiest on a clear Shanxi night, aligning a Dobsonian telescope that he once assembled from scrap metal and shipping crates. In interviews, he recalls that his favorite childhood memory is not launching fireworks, but watching them fail to ignite, diffuse hissing in darkness. So one had to imagine the unfulfilled bloom. His fiction stages that same moment on cosmic scale. A civilization lights fuses, particle colliders, gravitational wave beacons, neutrino cryptography. Never sure which sparks will blossom into salvation or extinguish the species. The moral, if any, is humbling. Intelligence confers the ability to name the abyss, not necessarily to escape it. Thus, the achievement of Liu Cixin lies in the way he recenters Chinese historical experience inside narratives vast enough to envelop Andromeda. He brings to global science fiction a voice steeped in hydraulic schedules and dynastic cycles, in collectivist trauma and technocratic faith. He asks what happens when an engineering civilization meets an uncaring cosmos and discovers that the cosmos answers in equations more ruthless than politics. In charting that encounter, he has expanded not only the genre's geographic boundaries, but also its conceptual gravity, demanding that we measure hope and terror with scales calibrated to the Milky Way.